That'll do. That'll do. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We had some very spirited and lively and very needed debate on issues. So I will go ahead and call to order our Tuesday, November the 8th City Council business meeting at 4 p.m. And the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, if she so chooses, will be led by Councilwoman Knoll.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we pray, Father, please.
Hit your light for me.
Dear, sorry. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today, asking you for guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting. Let us be effective and decisive. Amen.
Thank you, Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll accept a motion for our minutes this afternoon. The minutes have been motioned. They have been seconded. Without objection, the minutes will stand. Order of business for City Council ordinances on final reading. Madam Clerk, item A under equity and community engagement, please.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 2 by repealing ordinance number 11767, Section 2711 through 2716 and substituting a new Article 12 in lieu therefore creating the Department of Equity and Community Engagement.
Madam Vice Chair,
Move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. A second to that motion. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries on final reading. Ordinances on first reading. Let me take a show of hands. How many of you are here for item G on the agenda this afternoon? Raise your hand, please. Surely there's more than that. Item G is the airport in Lee Highway. There you go. All right. That's what I thought. Okay. Without objection, Councilman Henderson, I believe we are going to say the same thing, but go ahead, sir.
Well, that's not in my district. Actually, I was raising my hand toward the first item, but I have no objection to putting that in front of the agenda.
You read my mind. I appreciate that. Without objection of council, we will move item G out of respect for everyone's time. And I know that some people still have to go vote. Please go vote before they close the polls. So we will respect your time and hear that item first. Yes, sir.
If there's no objection, the resolution 7G, in my opinion, couples with that. I know it has no direct correlation in a sense it does. I would like to ask that it be moved up to follow the zoning.
Do you have a request to move item 7G under resolutions without objection from council? We will do that. All right. So 7G will follow our zoning case 0201. Madam Clerk, will you read the caption, please?
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone part of a property located at 7725 Lee Highway from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone.
Dr. Burrs, I see your light.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move approval. I move approval without conditions. The reason for that being exactly what Councilman Henderson is talking about. Those should be part of a community discussion. So with that, I move approval.
There's a motion to approve without conditions. And for those of you who follow zoning process, I did not ask if the applicant was present because the city is in the room. And I do know there is opposition. So, questions, comments before we vote on the item without conditions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm a no.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I've got a question for the board.
Yes, sir.
We are talking about item 2022-0201.
Yes, sir.
And before we vote, we're not going to hear, I know the city's the applicant, but we're not going to hear from opposition before we vote.
Does the city wish to present their case with the 7 minutes?
I will keep it brief, council. As you know, we have
Thank you, Councilman.
we have been discussing this for several weeks. We believe the moving forward with the rezone is the correct decision. And additionally, as we have had a community meeting, the mayor did express some very clear commitments, and he remains committed to his contract with the community. I understand that the council may need extra time to additionally consider a resolution on how to exactly codify that, if it wishes to do so, as well as how that resolution may need to be amended or adjusted. Additionally, this is, in a broader context, a project that significantly improves our ability to address homelessness in our community. It's a vital community, has the potential to become a vital community asset, and will improve and uplift the surrounding area, and turning a rundown motel into a building that looks no different from any other apartment building. And we appreciate the council's consideration on this matter. And in addition, and in the spirit of the mayor's commitment to continue to engage the public on this matter, we do have 2 additional community meetings scheduled already at the Shepherd Community Center on November 30th. From 2 to 3 p.m. and then additionally on December 14th from 6 to 7 p.m. And we anticipate this would help inform the request for proposal process that will select an operator and developer for this project. And again, we appreciate the council's consideration, but we do intend to continue to engage the broader community, not only the folks who have made the regular trip to city council, but also surrounding neighborhoods, as well as service providers, business partners in the private sector, to really ensure this project is successful. So again, we appreciate council's consideration and urge support for this rezone.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it may be helpful to those who are opposed that want to speak in opposition.
I am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That the reason I made the motion the way I did was for you all to be in on what the conditions are, as opposed to us up here saying it. So that's the reason I made the motion the way it is. And I will restate that motion because I think I can understand. I would be in opposition if I haven't had any input. I get that. So I'm opening the door for you to have input in the conditions. And the city has agreed to that. And so that's why I went ahead and made the motion.
Understood. The
Okay.
city has had the 7 minutes allotted for their opening, since we have had a session of 7 minutes allotted. And thank you for your comments, Mayor's Chief of Staff. The opposition has 9 minutes. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? You have 9 minutes. Please come to the podium. And if you would state your name and address for us for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Tim Ballard. I'm from Evans, Harrison, Hackett. Our office is located at 835 Georgia Avenue, Suite 800, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 37402. I'm here on behalf of a group of stakeholders and homeowners, parents, and business owners from the area who have serious concerns about this rezoning and the city's stated intentions for this property. As the city and mayor's office have told the community, the property known as the Airport Hotel is intended to become a permanent supportive housing facility, possibly operated by a California-based organization called Step Up. My friends at the city and at the mayor's office have attempted to paint this facility as a few different things: a pretty low-income apartment complex, a complex for sheltering those who are affected by homelessness, a mental health care facility, or some mixture of those three. They would like to paint the picture of a repurposed, formerly run-down hotel now transformed into a place of healing and growth for those in need. Unfortunately, it appears for several reasons that the road has not been paved to that destination. We can all agree that people who will be in this facility are in need of some assistance, either in dealing with mental illness, substance use, a criminal history, or some combination of those. We can all also agree that steps must be taken to support residents with these needs. Simply placing them under a roof is well and good, but it is not nearly enough to achieve the goal of establishing stability for those residents. It appears to me that the city has not accounted for certain other needs, such as transportation. For example, the nearest CARTA bus stop is a 43-minute walk down Bonnie Oaks Road, which is a road with virtually no sidewalks and which at certain points significantly narrows. This means that residents will have a dangerous walk not only to the nearest reliable means of transportation, but to each of the following: food, healthcare, clothing stores. For example, the nearest grocery store, if you look on Google Maps, is a Dollar General, which is a 20-minute walk down a busy road. Again, little to no sidewalks. And there are no crosswalks at significant intersections in this area that the residents might immediately need. The closest Walmart is a 58-minute walk from this facility. I understand that Step Up, the purported runner of this facility, teaches people how to cook, which is laudable but somewhat difficult without access to food. The nearest urgent care facility and pharmacy, not an emergency room, mind you, just urgent care and pharmacy, is on Volkswagen Drive and is a 38-minute walk down Bonnie Oaks. The nearest emergency room is Park Ridge North. Not bad at an 18-minute walk, but not great when you have to walk it under emergency circumstances. I understand that assurances have been made that CARTA Dial-A-Ride or CARTA Go services will be available. Now, to be clear, for everybody in this room that doesn't know, those services consist of 4 small buses per shift. Small buses, that's CARTA's words, not mine. Per shift, running between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7 p.m., servicing all of Brainerd and the East Brainerd areas. Now, assuming that all individuals and residents in this facility intend to not need anything outside of those hours, such as transportation to and from work or the pharmacy, that might be all right, but it's simply not reality. Further, the service only stops at intersections, not at specific addresses. I'd be curious to know at which intersections they would prefer to assist people in this particular facility. Further, we're all aware that there is a resolution before the council which attempts to alleviate some of the safety concerns, but which perhaps raises more questions than it answers. For example, Chattanooga Police Department will increase enforcement efforts and resources around the area. I understand nobody has a crystal ball on this, but this seems terribly vague to my clients. What exactly does it mean to increase enforcement efforts? What are the present enforcement efforts? For how long will those efforts be increased? Will the size of our police force be increased, or will we simply demand more from our current officers? On-site security and a fencing perimeter, or I guess the council is considering installing a wall now, perhaps on all 4 sides, perhaps on one side, or none at all. I'm not totally sure. A fence or a wall, that sounds a little bit like a prison to me, and I'm not sure that that's a good message to send to residents of the facility or the surrounding area. And I'm not sure how that will help residents, both inside the facility or outside, or even the local businesses. There's been no clear, unified indication to citizens of whether this is a facility which will provide mental health care services on site. If it will not, where will the residents go for those needs? If so, will UGC zoning permit a healthcare facility? Is this going to be a mental health care facility? Overnight guests will be documented and monitored, which is a great idea perhaps for boarding students or college freshmen, but what about a screening process for these guests? How long do stays last, and who enforces this? UGC zoning does not place a limit on density. While the city has been clear that the Airport Inn has 70 units, what remains unclear exactly is what the future plan is. Are there going to remain 70 units? Is the size of the building going to be increased per UGC limits to 5 stories? Is it going to be 70, 140 units, 280, 350, so on and so forth? In order to approve this rezoning, knowing the intended purpose for the site, you will have to turn a blind eye to each of the following. You have to turn a blind eye to your own area plan from January 11, 2005, which clearly states on page 15 that it is recommended that this continue to be a residential area with some commercial businesses grandfathered in, but no expansion of those or non-residential development expansion. Now, again, Due to some conflicting reports, it is difficult to know whether this is a residential or non-residential development, which points to perhaps a lack of proper planning. The total lack of infrastructure in this area will also have to be ignored. As I've already discussed, but it bears repeating, there's a lack of sidewalks and designated crosswalks in the area, which raises serious safety concerns for the residents of the facility themselves. The nearest CARTA bus stop, again, 43-minute walk. Nearest grocery store, 20 minutes. Nearest Walmart, 58 minutes. Nearest urgent care facility or pharmacy, 38 minutes. Nearest emergency room, 18 minutes. You have to ignore that there are better locations for this facility. This is not the only building which could be put to better use, far from it. Most importantly, you will have to ignore the needs not only of the residents, parents, and business owners in the area, but the very people that you purport to try to help. You want to build a facility which will house a portion of the population clearly struggling with mental health and/or substance abuse issues right in the midst of small businesses and family homes and about 1,000 yards from a school with a nursery and students age K through 12. But you do not appear to have a plan which is adequately structured to see to the needs of those in the facility or those without. And once this is rezoned to UGC, you will have missed an opportunity to actually accomplish what you set out to do, which is to help people in need. This is not a well-considered, cogent plan with all due respect. It is a half step. As far as my clients see it, this is not a step up, but it is a sidestepping of the issue, and it is a half step at that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There's 1 minute and 40 seconds left. Timekeeper. If anybody else in opposition would like to speak.
I don't know if opposition is the right
40.
word. My name is Tyler Owens, and I live at 7413 Old Cleveland Pike, which is right on the other side of Friar Creek branch, I guess, the creek, the neighborhood that's right on the other side of this. The bigger issue to me, and that's a very good summation of the things that have been going through my mind, is it feels like a railroad process. Like this is just being shoved through. And the tone that we get from the mayor and his advisors is that, hey, this is a done deal. And you guys are just ridiculous for wanting to know what's going on and saying there's a problem here. It's not ridiculous for us to be concerned. The fact that there's so many, the fact that there's so many people here that are saying, hey, wait, what's going on here, means that the process is not resolved. And just having another meeting where we can sit and be told, hey, you're ridiculous for being concerned about this, or the tone of that meeting was like that, or that, hey, this is a done deal, is just wrong. And I don't think that this should be approved. If this approving of this zoning is the first step in making that process happen, then it shouldn't be approved yet, because we're not ready to move forward with this in our community.
Thank you, sir. I think that time takes us right to the end unless someone has about 10 seconds. Okay. Then that will, we will now move back to the administration or the applicant. In this case, you have 2 minutes.
Yes. So one thing I want to point out, council, is that the opposition to this project consistently comes to you with a argument against this project that is not this project. This project is not a homeless shelter. It's not a mental health care facility. The mayor made that very clear. Permanent supportive housing is specifically designed to provide the support that ensures these residents are successful. This happens not only in communities across this country, but in communities right here in Chattanooga. This already happens. And when we pull the safety statistics or 911 incidents that happen in the permanent supportive housing that already exists here, I looked, there's one incident and a person who is not even a resident threw a rock and didn't even hit a window. That was the only one. So when it comes to a CARTA question, a transit question, Dial-A-Ride has worked for the Brainerd community for years. This is something that works, and we know how to train people how to use it. And better than regular residents, folks are going to have case managers on site to help them learn how to use it, and they will come right to the front door. Again, when we talk about the process for this project, not having all of the specifics, we have a process to help us get to those specifics, which is what the administration would like to move toward, which is the RFP. The RFP will allow us to select a developer and a service provider that will help us get to those specifics. So again, I think it's a bit disingenuous, which is something that we've heard over and over again, that we want more specifics, but there's a process to help us get there, which is to select a provider. And actually, before we even select a provider, we get a bunch of proposals that we can then evaluate. And then ultimately, council has the ability to approve or reject that contract whenever we bring it to city council. So again, we take issue with the shifting concerns, but we feel that we have addressed a significant number of those. We feel a lot of them are genuine, but then I'd ask this council to move forward so we can get to those specifics.
Thank you, Joda. Does the chair, point of order, thank you. Point of order, everyone. Thank you. The vote on the floor is 8. Does anybody wish to change their vote? 8 yeses. Councilman, I see your light. Are you? Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I was a little confused at the very beginning because we seemed to deviate from what our normal zoning process is. And I think the motion on the floor was to approve the rezone. Is that correct?
With 0 conditions, sir.
With 0 conditions.
Yes,
So normally we call for questions or comments also before we vote. And I would like to make a comment before,
Yes, sir.
before I cast my vote.
You have the floor.
Thank you. So it matters to me that we honor our commitments. And yes, we can say that the rezone is completely independent, but it's not. The rezoning is for the purpose of supportive housing. And I feel like the mayor has made a commitment to the community, to a community contract that I included in the resolution that's going to follow this. So this is what I'm going to say. So a rezoning requires 2 votes. It requires a vote tonight, and it also requires a vote next week. I will support the motion to approve the rezone based on the resolution passing. So I will vote yes tonight, but if the resolution fails, I will be voting no next week, because I do feel like we need to honor our commitments. And this was a commitment that was made by a public official in the city of Chattanooga that addressed the rezoning for supportive housing. So, Mr. Chair, my vote is a yes.
All right, the vote stands at 8 yeses. Anyone else wish to comment or make a change to their vote? The vote is 8 yeses and the chair dissents. And I would like to recognize Judge Gary Starnes is in the room with us, and appreciate you being with us this afternoon, sir. Madam Clerk, upon request of council, will you read item or resolution G?
Am I still active, Mr. Chair?
You are, sir.
Thank you.
A resolution directing the mayor and the city of Chattanooga to fulfill certain obligations and commitments in any future RFP and/or contract with a developer, operator, and service provider of supportive housing units on the city of Chattanooga real property formerly known as the Airport Inn located at 7725 Lee Highway property.
And for the record, that is version 3 and not the alternate version.
The original
3.
version. And
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chair, this is what we have considered in the slide, the contract with the community. And with that, I move approval.
Have a motion for approval. Councilman Smith, I see your light.
Thank you, sir. I did have a comment and I had a motion of my own, but I did want to make sure that we allowed enough time for a second to Councilman Henderson first.
Thank you, sir. There's a motion on the floor awaiting a second. There's a second to the motion. Questions, comments? It's now on the floor.
May I, sir?
Please, sir.
Thank you, Chair. through the conversations that we had earlier today, there were a lot of questions about the items, not just listed in this resolution, but then there was another version of the resolution. There were more items on that. And then there were conditions that Councilwoman Burrs so eloquently brought forward, conditional considerations from the community. And since those were not set as conditions, I think they should be considered as part of this resolution. But since we don't know for sure all of the ins and outs of those, as we found out earlier this afternoon, what I was hoping to do was have this resolution deferred to allow a little bit more community input and allow this council to look over these items a little closer. But if you would indulge me for just a moment. Hey, Chief, do you mind coming up?
Yes, Councilman.
I agree with Councilman Henderson entirely that some of these promises around this area to alleviate concerns of the residents should be codified, and I fully support doing a resolution to do so. I just don't necessarily believe it's in its final format today. So let me ask you this. You do plan to have additional community meetings, correct?
Yes. So we do plan on having community meetings on November 30th and December 14th. I'll read out the times actually right here. It'll be at the Shepherd Community Center, November 30th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. and December 14th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And again, the administration remains committed to its contract with the community. And so whatever form the council constructs this resolution, just know that the administration remains committed to the items that the mayor has already expressed.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Chair, knowing that the administration does plan to have 2 more meetings, the last one being on December 14th, I would like the items that Councilman Henderson and Councilwoman Burrs have presented to be discussed in those meetings and to be maybe further dialed in to exactly suit the needs of the community. So with that, Councilman Henderson, I hear what you're saying about your support for next week. If this does not pass, since we do have a second, I will be making a motion to defer a resolution until, or to, I guess, put it back on the agenda for December 20th. And those items I would like finalized after the December 14th community meeting, sir. So with that, I yield to CR Boone.
Yep, thank you for that. We have a motion on the floor to approve, and we do have a second to that motion. Are there questions, comments? I see the lights on the board. Councilwoman Hill, I see your light, you're active. Thank you.
I would like to second Councilman Smith's motion.
Okay, let's hold on. Before we
Oh,
make
okay.
motions on top of motions on top of motions, we have a process. We have a motion on the floor to approve. We do have a second to that motion. Do you wish to continue with those motions?
No, I don't wish to continue
asking
with the
the-
first
I
motion.
know, I'm asking. Do you wish to continue with your motion?
I do.
Okay, then we will vote, then we will take the vote. There's a motion on the floor,
I have a follow-up question.
of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
Phil, is there any reason, so what I'm trying to do is give the community some assurance that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. In passing also and addressing the rezoning, is there any reason after these meetings that we can't come back and amend a resolution or even present a resolution that magnifies, enhances this resolution? I mean, we can always come back and address this resolution at another time, correct?
Well, under Robert's rules, this resolution would have had a motion and a second.
It
and a
does.
vote by the body.
It has a motion and a second.
And if there is a vote that it is denied, then that resolution has been denied. It could be a new resolution with different provisions within it that could be presented at any time, or there could be a motion to reconsider under Robert's rules by someone that voted against the resolution.
My question, Phil, is if we pass this resolution tonight,
Yes, sir.
can it be amended after these community agreements?
Oh,
or
sure.
Community
Yeah.
members?
You could do amendments if it is approved here by the voters.
So we can give the community some assurance here tonight by passing this resolution and then continuing the dialogue, and then we can further amend this resolution to enhance it. Is that correct?
You could do that as well, yes.
Thank you.
As a body.
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Question has been called. Any questions or comments further on this item? A yes vote will approve, a no vote will deny. Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hill? No. Councilman Smith?
No.
Councilman Hester?
No.
Councilwoman Burrs? No. Councilwoman Knoll?
No.
Councilwoman Coonrod? No. Vice Chair Dotley?
No.
Chairman Ledford?
No.
8 noes, 1 yes.
Resolution is denied. So Councilman Smith, back to your point, we do not have anything on the agenda. That item has been denied.
Thank you, sir. And I know we don't typically ask for resolutions to be added to an agenda during our meeting, but I am, sir, asking that on December 20th, and it may only be by caption at this point, to add it to the agenda as those details are worked out and more finely tuned. I agree with what Councilman Henderson was saying as far as we could pass it an amendment or amend it. But to me, that's potentially doing the opposite by making a promise tonight that we change in a few weeks by changing language or wording. And so I don't want to give that false presumption to the constituents either. So I would rather see this again on December 20th, and I will rely on the administration to work very well with the community and fine tune some of these points so that we can codify it as best as possible to take care of their interests.
Very good.
Thank you, sir.
And I have no problem placeholding that for December 20th as well. Thank you for that motion. Councilwoman Coonrod, I see your light.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Ken, for bringing it to be deferred. I don't live in the district. However, I do have some concerns about it, about the resolution. So I'm gonna make every effort to make sure that I'm attending the community input sessions to see what's going on. But I encourage not just the Silverdale Church or the Academy to attend, but everybody that's in that area, business owners, homeowners, and the other surrounding churches in the area, so we can be a community input and it's not just one-sided. And because once I vote, I want to be assured that we did the work to engage the community, not coming to the community saying, this is what you need to accept. I want to know for certain that we communicated to you and you communicated to us and we created a working document with each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before we go back to the top of our agenda under ordinances for first reading, now that we have covered all the items regarding the airport inn, does anybody wish to leave the room? If so, we'll pause for just a couple moments because I know you need to go vote. Of course, I voted early. Of course.
There's a 60-day time period there.
Okay, Madam Clerk, ordinances on first reading, planning item A. You read the caption, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone part of property located at 3400 Cummings Road from M1 manufacturing zone and M2 light industrial zone to M4 outdoor industrial use zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? I do see an applicant. Is there any opposition present? Councilman Henderson, please. I do have an opposition, yes.
Well, the opposition, I think, will be pleased. I am going to make a motion to withdraw. The applicant has notified me that they wish to withdraw this, and I will make that motion.
I have a motion to withdraw that has a second. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item is withdrawn. Thank you, Councilman. Item B, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone a portion of property in an unaddressed block of Fringe Road from UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, RTZ Residential Townhouse 0 Lot Aligned Zone, and C2 Convenience Commercial Zone with conditions to RTZ Residential Townhouse 0 Lot Aligned Zone.
Is the applicant present? I do see an applicant, opposition and applicant. That's a new one. Is there any opposition present? All right, Councilman Henderson,
Move for approval.
have a motion to approve with a second to that motion. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item B carries. Madam Clerk, item C, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 706 and 710 Manufacturers Road from M1 Manufacturing Zone to RRF 6 Riverfront Zone and RRV 6 Riverview Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? Is it, if there, is there any opposition present? And just noted, I heard a deferment for 30 days.
Mr. Chairman, could
Yeah,
Mr. Hazlett come to the
yeah,
podium,
please
please?
come to the podium. and-
Tom Hazlett here on behalf of the applicant. Yes, we would request a 30-day deferral on this, and just speaking with RPA, we were looking at the 13th. December
Yeah,
13th.
okay.
December 13th.
Move to defer till December
I have a
13th.
motion to defer to December 13th. That motion has a second. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is deferred until December 13th. Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk, item D, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 4527 Hickson Pike from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone with conditions to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? I do see an applicant. Is there any opposition present? Councilwoman Hill, I see an applicant with no opposition present.
I move to approve.
Have a motion to approve. That motion does have a second. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Madam Clerk, item E, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 4649 Shallowford Road from R2 Residential Zone and M3 Warehouse and Wholesale Zone to M2 Light Industrial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? I do see an applicant. Is there any opposition present? Councilman Hester, hit your light for me.
I move to approve with this comment.
Hit your light for me so we can get it on record.
I move to approve with this comment, that there will be a 50-foot buffer for this property.
There's a motion to approve with a comment attached that was discussed in our 3:30 session and verified as attached, and RPA is shaking their head to acknowledge the same as well. Any questions or comments before we vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item E carries with the note attached. Item F, Madam Clerk, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 6026 East Brainerd Road from R1 Residential Zone to RT1 Residential Townhouse Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? I do see an applicant. Is there any opposition present? Dr. Burrs, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. I move to defer to December 13th.
I have a motion to defer until December 13th and a second to that motion. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item is deferred. We've already covered item G. We're not going there again. Madam Clerk, item H, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 3102 10th Avenue from M1 Manufacturing Zone to R2 Residential Zone.
Madam Vice Chair,
Move to defer until November 15th.
have a motion to defer until what date?
November 15th.
November 15th. Thank you. Had the 13th in my head. I do need a second to that motion for deferral. There's a second to the deferral. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item is deferred till November 15th. Item I, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 3402 4th Avenue from R1 Residential Zone to RTC Residential Townhouse 0 Lot Line Zone.
Madam Vice Chair.
Move to defer until November 15th.
First, let me ask if the applicant is present. Any opposition present? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to defer to November 15th with a second. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, item is also deferred until November 15th. Madam Clerk, item J, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 1800, 1802, 1808, and 1810 South Halsclaw Avenue and 1304 East 18th Street from R2 Residential Zone and R4 Special Zone with conditions to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Is the applicant present? I do have an applicant present. Is there any opposition present? Councilwoman Knoll, if you'll hit your light for me. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve and a second to that motion. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye. Item carries. Thank you. Item K, please, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 3717 Grace Avenue from R1 Residential Zone to R2 Residential Zone.
Is the applicant present? I do have an applicant. Is there any opposition present? Councilwoman Coonrod? I do hear a motion to approve, and that has a second to that motion. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Item carries. Resolutions, economic development, item A, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a second agreement to exercise option to renew with Missionary Ridge Neighborhood Association, Inc. in substantially the form attached for a lease of 36 Sheridan Avenue, identified as tax parcel number 156EB001.01 for an additional term of 1 year through December 16, 2023, for the amount of $1 per year.
This is in District 9. Have a motion to approve, a second to that motion. Questions, comments before we vote? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, item carries. Under IT, item B, please.
A resolution authorizing the Department of Technology Services to increase AST blanket contract number 558859 from Human Capital Time and Labor Licensing Module and Recruiting Cloud Licensing Module to fund years 3, 4, and 5 in the amount of $62,160 for each year, in the amount of $186,480 for a revised total amount of $8,495,121.
I have a motion to approve. I have a second to that motion. Questions or comments? We did cover this in committee. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, item carries. Under Mayor's Office, without objection from council. Madam Clerk, will you please read C, D, E, and F, and we will take those as a package.
A resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's reappointment of Ronald Smith to the Beer and Record Board District 6 for a term beginning on November 9, 2022, and ending on November 8, 2025. D, a resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's reappointment of James Walker to the Board of Construction Appeals for a term beginning on November 9, 2022, and ending on November 8, 2026. E, a resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's reappointment of Michael Webb to the Board of Construction Appeals for a term beginning on November 9, 2022, and ending on November 8, 2026. F, a resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's reappointment of Jeffrey Wilson to the General Pension Board for a term beginning on November 9, 2022, and ending on November 8, 2027.
Have a motion to approve. Have a second to that motion. Questions, comments on the items as a package? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Items carry. That ends our ordinances and purchases for this evening, our ordinances and resolutions for this evening. It's been a long afternoon. Ms. Satterfield, you have 2 purchases to bring us. This afternoon, we have no RFPs and no emergency purchases to report.
Yes, we have 2 purchases recommended for approval. First, from Public Works, we have a one-time procurement for removal and replacement of community center signs in 14 locations. 3 bids were received, and the award goes to Virtual Studios, Inc. in the amount of $112,246.80. And second, from the Fleet Management Division of Public Works, a request to increase the contract with On Duty Depot for Satina Police vehicle equipment. The increase of $20,000 will allow for the purchase of 18 additional units. for a new annual amount not to exceed $90,000. And we have no RFP formats and no emergency purchases.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve our purchases with a second to that motion. Questions or comments on purchases this evening? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll now move into committee reports. Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilwoman Knoll. Dr. Burrs. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All of us received, and I think this is great, Ty from Community Development sent us a invitation for the city council members to come spank community development staff in pickleball. And I certainly, I'm certainly going to respond. And what I would like for the council to do is maybe to try to pick a date that we can maybe all come together as a council and show community development who their daddy is. So,
How about a Tuesday? About 5 or 6 o'clock?
I think that would be good.
I do appreciate that. That is very nice. Pickleball is really growing.
And I do have one follow-up. Mr. Chair, I think next week, November the 15th, strategic planning, I believe we're scheduled to discuss some proposal from the short-term vacation rental
Yes,
committee.
that's correct.
That is during strategic planning at 2 p.m.
That is correct.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Hill. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually get to talk about a meeting coming up. November 15th, we will have a legislative committee meeting. We will be discussing a record ordinance draft and a noise ordinance draft. No further report on that, but I will comment on Councilman Henderson's announcement of this pickleball challenge that we've had. And I just like to say that I'll be sending my 16-year-old son as my proxy. Thank you, sir.
The lacrosse champion. I look forward to that, having him on our team. Woo! You may regret that throwdown. Okay. Councilman Hester?
No report.
All right, Madam Vice Chair.
No report.
Okay, we now will move into recognition of persons wishing to address council. Yes, ma'am. Hit your light for me.
Thank you. I would just like to thank the International Association of Professional Black Firefighters and Madam Vice Chair Dotley for a fabulous event that they put on this weekend on Saturday. It was absolutely amazing. And let me tell you, they were GQ cover magazine ready. So,
right.
And also a shout out to Guns and Hoses.
Was that fun?
Let
or
me
what?
tell you, Dylan, yes. I mean, it was my first time and it was so much fun. It was amazing. It was really good. So everyone that was in that ring had some hands. So
Yeah.
I know who to call when I need backup.
And it was, and who was it for?
It was
For the kid.
for the kids. And yes, that's it.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Forgotten Child Fund and
All
Wagon.
right. Anybody
Okay.
wishing to address council? Oh, wait a minute. I have all kinds of lights. Councilwoman?
Yep. Speaking of guns and hoses, I'm signing myself up to be in it next year. I got a few for the kids.
Now, if
If
we do,
Chip- if
if we
Chip
do
don't-
pickleball, I'm in.
If Chip don't beat me to the punch, but yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other additions before we move into persons wishing to address council this evening? I'm assuming there will be some. So, Mr. Attorney, will you please read our rules for public speaking, please?
Sure. At the end of every council meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public that wish to address the council. Here's your rules. Each speaker wishing to address can only be recognized up front at the microphone. Can't have more than 3 minutes to speak. You can address the council only upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority and not upon matters that are under the authority of other governmental bodies or agencies. You can't use any vulgar or obscene language nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others. Address your comments to the council as a whole and not towards individual council members. You can only do so once a day and do not engage in disorderly conduct or disrupting a public meeting, which is prohibited under Tennessee law. And someone commits an offense if a person substantially obstructs or interferes with the meeting by physical action or verbal utterance with the intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting. So having said those rules, please come forward, sir.
John, District 9 in Highland Park. I want to start this by saying I only own one home here in Chattanooga and I have no plans for investment properties. But short-term vacation rentals aren't the villains that we think they are. You know that I'm pro-affordable housing, and I think that problems surrounding the short-term vacation rental and other forms of gentrification are actually symptoms of much bigger problems. We need to blame the lack of housing supply caused by restrictive zoning laws for this problem. When I bought a house here, 6 months later, the value of my home increased greater than the loan that I was approved for. One way to look at this is to say I gentrified my past self out of my neighborhood within 6 months. But we can't only blame single homeowners for this community problem, the housing shortage. You see, if people didn't stay at a short-term vacation rental, they would stay at a hotel or somewhere more towards downtown, which sounds ideal. But it's just shifting where the price increase happens. It's not getting rid of it. Also, our downtown has become a finite resource. The types of things we build there have been all but outlawed in most other parts of our community. Let's start with where the short-term vacation rental posed to be the biggest nuisance: single-family housing neighborhoods or the suburbs. The suburbs bring in less revenue than the cost of the city to maintain them in most cases. These are essentially subsidized by tax flow positive areas of town, like the downtown and other business hubs. Yet suburbs exclude both of these things: dense housing and businesses. We are outlawing tax flow positive areas and encouraging tax flow negative ones. If you want to solve for affordable housing, we really need to lower the barrier of entry for affordable housing to be built. Outlawing Airbnbs is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. It doesn't make housing more affordable in the city as a whole. It just shifts where housing becomes less affordable. I'm not saying there should be no regulation, and but most pro-housing advocates against short-term vacation rentals are possibly misled by what is really causing the housing problem, or they are using housing as a front to protect the homogeneity of their neighborhood. And the surest way to increase affordable housing is to decrease zoning regulations and upzoning in all neighborhoods in Chattanooga. I thought I was going to give you guys a minute back, but just 30 seconds. I think this is my record, by the way. Anyways, I'm going to get off to go vote, but just wanted to say that I know we have short-term vacation rentals coming up, and I wanted to say I think the bigger issue is housing as a whole, not just short-term vacation rentals. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Mariemont District 8. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. There is no time for apathy or complacency. This is the time for vigorous and positive action. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we think about permanent supportive housing, of course, there's a lot of opposition. There are some concerns that I have raised within the community about accessibility, particular to the location. But I kind of wanted to dig in about the dais. And that is when we think about some of the complexities about how inaffordable housing is coming about, gentrification is coming about, without a shadow of a doubt, that is a byproduct of public policy, zoning decisions, and various different decisions that you all make on this dais. The fact that when we think about zoning, we don't think about environmental impact or racial impact studies. There are so many things that people have continuously, whether they're activists or advocates, have come before this body. And to Councilwoman Coonrod's point, cherry picking of issues is also something that happens in this dais. That some issues seem to be more important than another. We're talking about homelessness, but how many people know 386% of those who are now homeless look like me? They're Black. Do you think they accidentally got on the street? Or is that a byproduct of over 5,000 people in East Chattanooga between District 8 and District 9 between 2021 and 2022 that were gentrified out of their neighborhood? Is that possibly a contributing factor of the decisions that you make every single Tuesday that might be driving some of these issues? The thing that I am asking for, because there is a fierce urgency of now, is that our council has to come up in its education, as well as in my purview. I demanded with many others who disagreed when I ran for city council, you guys need staff. There's no possible way that you guys can do the research required, the public policy required on your own. You need people on your staff that can do that work for you. I have friends in Washington, D.C., in Atlanta, in Birmingham, who do this, their aides, their staff, for council members, to be able to make sure that whatever you decide, you do it informed, because that information cannot come from the executive branch, right? You cannot expect them to give you every level of piece of information. So please think about it the next time you draft a budget. Put something in there for you, because that is what the executive branch does. You are the financial legislators of our community. You are the good stewards. So do something for yourself that will help you going forward. That's just my recommendation. Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod, 1 second, please. I see your light, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. And Ms. Mott, thank you again for your concerns. I do want to extend the olive branch out to you again. I'm actually not the one who mentioned the cherry picking. That was Councilwoman Noel, but I would love for us all, whenever you got time on your schedule, we could meet and talk about all the ideas and things that you have. I know you have a lot of great things for District 8, and I know my colleague would love to, work with you to implement those things. I'm right on the side of you, so I'd like to hear what your thoughts are and ideas as well. So whenever your schedule permits, please reach out to us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes, ma'am, please go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Beth Palmer, and I own and operate 3 short-term rentals in District 2. I know this topic's not on your agenda today, but I came to give input prior to your discussion at the strategic planning meeting next week. I stood here last April representing those who had signed a petition requesting that you not pass the moratorium on short-term rental permits. Over 1,000 people signed that petition. I'm here today to represent a growing number of Chattanooga residents who are joining an STVR advocacy group in response to Mayor Tim Kelly's heavy-handed restrictions on short-term rentals proposed by Chris Anderson at the STVR ad hoc committee meeting last week. We believe the mayor's proposed changes are a government overreach and infringement on property owner rights, and will have a significant negative impact over time to our tourism industry and overall economy in Chattanooga. Since the moratorium, I've spent hours engaged in this process. At every opportunity, I've shown up. My goal has always been to be a helpful contributor to the discussion, but after sitting through the committee meeting last week and hearing the proposed restrictions, I feel my efforts have been largely ignored. I share in your frustration with the lack of enforcement that has allowed hundreds of non-permitted rentals to operate illegally. Increased efficiency and enforcement should absolutely continue. However, the revised ordinance should not be written based on the assumed impact of the illegal STVRs, and especially when all of them are consequently being shut down with improved enforcement. The main problem we have is with the mayor's suggestion to ban all future STVR permits in R1 properties. I have yet to hear 1 ounce of factual evidence that the legal R1 rentals are causing a significant disruption in our city. In fact, the statistics show quite the opposite. Out of all of the permitted non-owner occupied rentals, the city has received 10 complaints over the last year, only 10. There has been discussion about density, but the question has never been asked, how many is too many? There are currently only 182 non-owner occupied permits for R1 properties. That is 0.2% of the residential properties in Chattanooga, 1 out of every 500. The claim that these rentals are fundamentally changing neighborhoods at this minuscule level of density is unfounded and absurd. What is the actual problem that is necessitating this over-restrictive policy? My suggestion for a more reasonable approach is to place a cap for available permits for R1 properties that is 3% of the residential housing stock in each individual district. I think it's fair to say that 3 out of every 100 properties is not going to fundamentally change neighborhoods. By eliminating the overlay, the council can remove a policy that has caused the current disproportional concentration in 5 of the 9 districts, instead of allowing it to be equally spaced over the whole city. I'm not aware of any other type of permit that individual districts can choose to ban completely.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just start going. My name is Joshua Capellish. I'm an advocate for homeless citizens of this community's rights here in Chattanooga. I'm also a veteran, God-fearing man, practicing Christian, and a father of 4 children, but 8 that look to me. So for me, it's very important to come here and speak on behalf of the homeless. A lot of people talk about, I guess, they or them or those who are apart from us, but speak about people whom they potentially have never met or don't have, potentially personal relationships with. And irregardless, we have a duty as Americans to work together. We know today's a big day in voting, across the nation. Democracy is never perfect, and the hope, I think, for America is that we find a way to work together despite our differences and have inclusion so that people can exercise their First Amendment rights to speak and be included on these important decisions that we make. I think I've been here for about a year and a half speaking, and I think it was December when the announcement for this property was being discussed as far as the homeless place there and many other encampments, but it's going to include a diverse I guess, approach and trying to segregate the needs of those folks and isolating those. So potentially, an elderly folks type home, or people over 65 or people who have disabilities could be an opportunity for people to be in that specific place. Or women, they're the most disadvantaged or vulnerable out there, and people with families. So maybe we can isolate those people into that and have more of a public input on that. I spoke with some folks out there. But basically, as a person, I've worked really hard in my life to earn 3 college degrees in 5 years debt-free. I've worked at Honda Research and Development, Oak Ridge National Laboratories, some of the highest levels of sciences. And I find myself out in the streets, serving the homeless people out there. And, I could present to you all a special presentation with 50 different homes, if you'd like, for tiny homes that could be immediate and include people in the downtown facility for transitional home services and for long-term placement. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to work together, and I think including them is very important on the democratic and just a inclusive process. So I stand here not as a homeless person, but who has seen in the city a lot of folks come and go and transition over the years, from new homeless people to people who've been there chronically. And I think if we include people in the community who are in opposition and in support of, not necessarily in this platform, but pre-city council, we can achieve more. So thank you for this opportunity, and keep it up. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I've been attending a few of these meetings with the Lee Highway Development. And I want to say there's a lot of opinions going back and forth. What it's like to say is every opinion is valid. My frustration with our city members has been that we were not communicated to. Last week, I saw people representing the homeless, people who were representing the children, people were representing their homes. We got to hear all sides of the argument, and it was very educational. What it does is it teaches us as citizens what it's like for the homeless. It teaches those who don't walk in each other's shoes what it is like to be them. I don't know what it's like to be a homeowner there. Maybe I don't know what it's like to have a child going to school there. Maybe I don't know what it's like to be homeless, but I'm not going to know those things if you don't allow the opportunity for your community to tell each other what it's like, to educate each other so that we can come to a decision as a community that is best for us all. And what you all have done is waited till 2 weeks before voting to even tell the community, to even let us have a voice, which is absolutely disgraceful, because we deserve that. We deserve to be educated by each other. We deserve to learn what it's like to walk in each other's shoes. I want that. I want to know how I can help the homeless, but I also want to know how I can help the children and the people that live there and the business owners who have lost their licenses now because of this development. I want to know, and you should give us that right to be involved in this. So my last request is that there is a meeting held on November 31st, like you have said. and it is from 2 to 3. How do you expect this community to be a part of that? If we work from 8 to 5, we can't show up from 2 to 3. So I'm asking and requesting that if you truly care about community input, that you put this at a time where you will get the majority of these community members at your meeting. Thank you.
Hang on one second, sir. Councilwoman Coonrod, I see your light. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Now, this is the point I think where council members, we can help educate our communities as she's asked. Joda, if you can address, I forgot your name, Michelle, because city council isn't the people who organize the meeting, and we've known about the development, the property for over a year, what the intentions were, but all the other stuff that wasn't council. So your concerns, and I know we don't have like a mayor session and comment session for the mayor, but the mayor and administrations is who those comments will be directed to, because I'm just not in the season to be getting beat up for everybody else. I want to get beat down for the stuff that we do on council. And, today it's just not one of those days. But I do appreciate you, coming up, but I want to make sure you get to the right person.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I just want to clarify. So we do have a meeting on November 30th from 2 to 3, and we have a separate meeting on December 14th from 6 to 7 p.m., specifically for folks that are not able to make that 2 to 3 p.m. And we'll explore some virtual options as well. So for folks who can't be there, they have some way of virtually participating. That's one of the things that came out of the pandemic that is extremely helpful in helping encourage engagement. We did the same thing for our police chief engagement. We intend to do the same thing here. Again, I would like to reiterate that the request for proposals is what we are helping. This process will help us design, is the RFP itself. And then once we get those proposals back, we'll be able to have a more robust conversation about specifics, because we are going to be looking for specifics from the people submitting proposals. Thank you, Council.
Sorry, we're not doing a town hall. You can wait, Michelle. You can talk with him right after the meeting. I promise he'll be in the lobby, and you can ask whatever question you want. Yes, sir. You've been patient. Thank you.
Good evening. To those who I have not had opportunity to speak to this evening. I stay at 1309 North Chamberlain Avenue, which is my side of the road. It's in District 9, but it's getting ready to be in District 8 when the new lines take effect. So I'm coming here because right there at the corner of North Chamberlain and Glenwood, there are multiple wrecks there. It's neighbors, we talk all the time. There are fences. Cars are running through their fence in their yard, tearing their fences up. And one have ran through my fence in my yard. And the insurance, they go up on you when you keep calling them to fix that. And then you have to go through this process of trying to see if the motorist got insurance to take it. It's a long process. And I'm just afraid that one day somebody's car is going to go through somebody's house. Because if you drive through, you see the fences all bent up. They're tired of replacing them. So when I'm asking if you could please get the traffic people to come out there and look and see how we can do something to make it safer so we don't have a major fatality. I know this year alone, it's been at least 5 or 6 wrecks right there at their spot. So it's stop signs on both sides, but that is not working. And they're tearing up the residents' fence on those corners. And if you ride through there, you'll see what I'm talking about. So if y'all could help, Councilwoman Coonrod, she's always available for me, and Councilman Dalius as well. So I'm kind of caught, I'm a tweener. And so if y'all could really look into that to help those neighbors, because it is expensive. I don't know if you ever replaced the fence at your house. It's not cheap. And so if we could do that, I would really appreciate that.
Yes, sir. I was looking to see if anybody from CDOT was in the room, but you definitely have Councilwoman Coonrod and Councilwoman Knowles' attention here this evening. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. What was your name again, sir?
Kelvin Scott.
Oh, Kelvin Scott. Yeah, I know your name. Yeah, we've met before. That's right. Thank you, Kelvin. Yeah. Councilwoman Coonrod, did you need it shows that it's active. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
I never turned you off, I
Yeah,
promise.
thank you. I'm glad I
never
had
do
my
that.
mic up. I would have heard me. listen, you can't forget this man right here. He gonna be my replacement come 2025 if he don't move to the District 9 side. And I say that with all sincerity, but Kelvin, yeah, this has been an issue going on. Like we've been working on it for some years, and the owner that live on the corner with the fence there, there was some paperwork at the time. Blythe, he was NC dot that he had given him. I'm not sure if he got the signatures needed and turned in, but I will follow up with the department to see what else is needed or what we need to get done. Maybe I need to come knock on some doors. But I assure you, it's still on my radar. This has been ongoing since I got into office in 2017. So it's been like a lengthy thing going on, but I got you.
We can continue this after the meeting.
But catch me
Okay.
after the
Yeah.
meeting. We'll talk further.
Yeah, thank you. Miss Janice is standing there, and I don't like that look.
Thank you,
Councilwoman.
Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Janice.
Janice Gooden, District 8. Just have a couple of comments. I appreciate that the noise ordinance is finally coming. And I look forward to seeing, what's contained, because I did document my concerns. The other thing I have a concern about is the Wilcox Bridge. We celebrated the funding and just happened to be my birthday, August the 12th. But my concern is what happens in between, because we know that's years away. And yesterday I was kind of unnerved because I'm on the bridge and there's this huge truck coming up from below, and it has all these heavy things on it. And, traffic is sitting there waiting. He finally makes a left turn. Then a 18-wheeler comes in this direction. So if the bridge is in such critical condition, what's going to happen in between? And, when was the last inspection? And what is the condition of the bridge, So those are my concerns.
Those are very valid concerns. As we know, the Chattanooga Fire Department
The
is
bridge
off
was
limits.
doing this
Yeah.
while I was
So
on it.
I don't know who from the administration can answer some of Miss Janice's questions, but Miss Janice, they're shaking their heads for you. So.
Good evening. My name is Haley Mick. I'm from District 4. I was here for the purpose of the rezoning of the airport in, and it seems like you all are in agreement that zero communication was really had in the community with enough time for us to actually be on board to make this project successful. So what I had planned to say is not relevant, I think, but I guess my question to you all is, we're struggling to understand how if the rezoning was just passed with no conditions, and as it's been pointed out, the mayor and his staff talking to the community is not on you all. Like, how do those two tie together? How is the project really connected to this contract with the community, or whatever we're going to call it, that we're all going to go to these meetings and create a list for? And I don't know who wants to address that. I don't know if you want to call Joda up to address it, because at this point, I'm just an average citizen. Like, I don't know what the legal obligation is going to be of upholding this contract if it's not actually part of the project.
So I'm going to take a swing at it for you.
All right.
So the mayor's office is scheduling 2 meetings that you've heard about. And then I'm assuming after that point, Joda, you're welcome to come up and speak for the mayor, because I promise you I'm not going to do that. And then an RFP at some point will be crafted. That RFP has to come before council to be approved for them to send it out. And then it goes out into the world. And people or organizations respond to the RFP. And that's when it is decided or a contract is awarded. So and then the other part of that is surplusing the property. Now, it's important to note that part has been put on the back burner. And I will tell you that I did that because I felt it was not in line with what we needed to do right now. I don't know what we're surplusing and what it's for. So that one I will take full responsibility when the time is right. And I don't know when that is, but we have some work in front of us. And I think there's a lot of conversation still to be had. And so hopefully that answers your questions. And Joda, please step in. And
so I think you summarized it fairly well. I think the process from here is that the community will have an opportunity to provide input on how we're constructing an RFP as a question to a range of possible providers, and to say, we have this problem that or a potential idea, and we would like proposals on how that will come together. This point in time, the city has a piece of property that was purchased, and we have a rezoned that piece of property that can contain multifamily. From here on, the next step is issuing an RFP that allows providers that have expertise in this work to detail to us what their proposed plan is to actually provide the services that we're seeking. And these community meetings ahead of issuing the RFP are to really make sure that we ask the question extremely well. And that's why we are looking forward to being able to host these 2 meetings on November 30th and then in mid-December. And then it is our intent to issue an RFP from there. And then once the proposals come back and we follow our legal procurement process, we will then bring that proposal that is selected back to City Council for approval.
Does that help? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Let's see, Councilwoman Hill, I see your light. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to speak briefly to Joda and get on the record a couple thoughts about these community meetings and the fact that Councilman Smith has asked for an item, a resolution to be on our December 20th agenda. We saw a version of a list of items that this body did not feel like was actually representative of a best practice for us to sustainably build permanent supportive housing in our city, that also was not representative of a full body of expert and community voices side by side. So I wouldn't want anyone in the community to anticipate that this is a call and response kind of meeting. Like I would like to see the mayor's office would like you all to construct community listening sessions that are perhaps more of a work group kind of experience, so that it's not I think a different style is going to help both educate and create more of a consensus that also is something that we as a body can see as something that we would want to replicate in other communities that also works to serve the problem that we're trying to solve.
That's great feedback, Councilwoman. I totally agree. And that's why we will be working over the next couple of weeks as we move toward the first meeting on November 30th to really make sure these are constructive and opportunities for the administration to listen in contexts where we can actually hear the nuances of what people are saying, and 8 or 12 will break out and help really detail what their thoughts are, and give the community an opportunity to really drill into specific issues, ways that we can provide infrastructure, service providing, again, so we can ask that question well. So we that feedback and we'll take it into seriously.
Yeah, civil conversation is a conversation. It's not a punch list of here's what I showed up in a meeting and I expect you to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Evening.
Hi, my name is Casey Crook. I live in District 3. I'm here. I know we're not necessarily having a meeting about the guaranteed housing, but I wanted to state my own support of it. And as we're moving forward through this process, I wanted to state something more broadly, which is when you have sustained meetings like this, it's very easy to lose the plot, especially if there's been a flawed rollout or anything like that. And I think that fundamentally, all of these concerns are worth addressing. However, I think that it's incredibly easy to dilute that core. Right now, you have 70 units. What if one of those units has to be set aside to a security? That's one person less that is living within that space. So I want to state the support not only for this conceptually, but also just in general. I live in District 3, which is not near where the proposed situation is. I would love to have more in my area. And so as we have more of these concerns and as we make more concessions and address other things, I want us to fundamentally, both the city and the council, to not lose that thread that these people need homes. I understand that we don't want to put these people's lives in danger or the people's lives nearby, or we want to make sure that they're close enough to the amenities that they need, but fundamentally they need homes. And if there are issues with this proposal, then we can fix them. So like if there needs to be a sidewalk along the area, we can put a sidewalk in. That would be a good resolution to that, as opposed to moving this elsewhere or further diluting this and making sure that we get it perfect before we get it done. Again, just fundamentally, these people need homes. It's hard to go through winter. It might not be a cold winter, so maybe less so, but it's hard to go through a summer here. And if you are concerned about people having to walk 20 minutes to a grocery store or to medical support, then imagine having to do that from People's Street or from even further away where you may have to cross a highway or go down across a bridge or anything like that. So fundamentally, just help give these people support. And I would love to see more like this. Again, I love this conceptually, and I think that the council and the city are going in a great direction, even if, as a lot of people have addressed, the rollout may have been flawed and there's a lot of room for improvement. Just keep that in mind, that these people need homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Martina Guilfoyle from Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise. Gosh, I just have so many thoughts running through my head. So I think we're at a critical moment of time in our community to ask the question, do we want to be a city for some of us or for all of us? And I think that this proposal in front of the council around the transition permanent supportive housing really is part of a larger conversation about what is our housing strategy in the city. How do we make sure that there is housing for all of us on a continuum, from those that can't afford the current average rent of over $1,200 a month in Chattanooga County and over $1,300 in the city, downtown. So how do we provide for folks like that? And I know that when C&E has come before the community with any of our projects, there's always concerns. We don't want affordable housing. Affordable housing conjures up all sorts of negative ideas about who lives in affordable housing. And so I would encourage, as part of this process, for anybody to drive through Bailey and Willow and Union Avenues and pick out what is a C&E affordable unit. And I think the neighbors, once the housing is there, they realize this is housing for the people that I work with, that when I go to Publix and I buy a piece of chicken, it's someone who works in the chicken factory or somebody that built my house. And people that are home, there's a reason that there's this huge increase in homelessness, and it's because rents have gotten so high. And how we address that, I think, is part of this larger conversation. I understand Jenny mentioned the Knoxville project. I was really fortunate a few weeks ago to go up to visit the Knoxville Leadership Foundation organization in Knoxville, and they have 2 permanently supportive housing projects that I would be proud to own and operate in this community. And I think maybe that's a possibility to send a busload of people up there to talk with them. And Chris Martin, their CEO, said people in the neighborhood were concerned. There was neighborhood opposition, and now it's just part of the neighborhood. And I think that so when we think about how is a project like this going to be managed, it's not the people, it's how the property manager manages the rules and regulations of that community. And the other thing that was interesting about the Knoxville project is that there were no armed guards and there were no fences. And so how do we create a welcoming community for people that are trying to get back on their feet, or maybe they're working and making a really low wage as they move into transition of being successful? I think the design of the community is really important as well to this project. So I just wanted to talk about where we are in this point of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. And that sounds like an excellent suggestion. And if we could pull that off, sign me up. I'd love to go. I'm sure some others would like to go too. Hey, look at that. See? We're looking at the administration right now is what we're doing. Anyone else wishing to address council this evening before we need to go vote? Everyone go vote. We are adjourned. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Who, what? Someone move to adjourn? We're gone. Let's go vote.